everyone, I'm cooking Spanakopita, which is literally translated from the Greek to spinach pie. It's one of my family's favourite recipes and I'm going to show you 2 ways to make it. My yaya, which is Greek for grandmother, has passed down the recipe which uses, I suppose, a staple of spinach, dill, egg, shallot of some sort, onion of some sort, and phyllo pastry and feta cheese. So obviously there are lots of variations. You can use anything additional that you want. I'm using pine nuts here, but a lot of people like to put in breadcrumbs, different types of cheeses, like they put in ricotta just to make it a bit creamier. But you can use different types of nuts, nutmeg, parsley, celery, just to give it a bit of a different texture and different flavors. You can also make a vegan version of this if you so desire, if you're having vegan friends over for dinner or if you're celebrating Lent. You can obviously substitute the egg and the cheese and put in tofu instead. So what I'm showing you here is pretty much a template. So you pretty much, as I said, just do whatever you want with the other ingredients, but these ones need to stay because otherwise it's not Spanakopita. Alright, so there are 2 types of Spanakopita. I'm going to show you both of them here. The first is the more traditional style, which is actually a pie. So you put it in a baking dish with some phyllo on the bottom and on the top, and you enclose the spinach goodness inside. Then you can obviously just cut it up like you would a pie, lasagna, whatever. The second version we're going to make, which is better for parties or appetizers, entertaining sort of stuff, it will actually roll it up into a little triangle of yumminess. So we'll show you both types, and they both take roughly the same amount of time, but we're going to use the same mixture, which makes it a lot easier. Alright, so here's what you need, your ingredients to make the Spanakopita. Just note that obviously I'm making 2 separate recipes here, so I'm using a lot of ingredients. So if you are only making it for a test run, or you don't have a big fat Greek family to impress like I do, then just halve the recipe. You'll work it out. Alright, so we have our bowl, which we're going to use for mixing. We've got our baking dish, which we're going to make the pie in. And we've got our baking trays, which I've already lined with baking paper, and I'm going to just spray those down with some oil before I put the triangles onto them. Just helps them not stick because you want to eat all of it. This is a revelation. I don't know if any of you used it. Olive oil. It's just the most fantastic thing I've ever come across, and it makes things so easy. You don't have to get messy, and you can get really dexterous with it, spray it in and around stuff. So highly recommend getting some of that. And some butter, which is just good for, brushing the top of the triangles. So here I've used a mixture of lemnos and Bulgarian feta, and it roughly adds up to about 500 grams. Then I'm using shallots. Here I've got about 6 or 7 bunches, just because I like a lot of shallotty goodness. Silverbeet. I've used 1 bunch here, which has been washed well. I've removed the stalks and then chopped it up. It might look like a lot of stuff, but don't worry, it actually will reduce quite a bit. I'm using dill. I've got, as you can see, quite a lot of dill. I'm using egg. I've got about 3 eggs in here, which I'm just gonna roughly whisk up, just so it gets all nice and mixed. Then I'm using pine nuts. I've got about 70 grams worth here. Alright, chopping. Dog in picture. That's Hallie, by the way. She's my 10-year-old Cocker Spaniel, and I have loved her for 10 years, and I have laughed at her for 10 years. Yeah. She's a big dope, and she falls over a lot. Which is why we don't let her on the show, because she would just embarrass everyone and try to eat everything. But traditionally, the puppy does kind of spend a lot of time in the kitchen, especially if I'm cooking, because it's very interesting. Shallots. I like them shallot. You could obviously use onion. I think brown onion would probably go really well in this. But I'm going to stick with the traditional family recipe just because I know it's a good one. And I find shallots make me cry significantly less. Yeah. Nothing worse than getting all emotional while you're cooking.
Can't seem to Yazzie doing drama piece.
I just love to eat! Alright, pop him in. And we're going to pop in the shallots with the dill just for a little bit and just mix them up and just get them a bit fragrant before we pop the spinach in. Because the spinach doesn't actually need to cook, it just needs to wilt. So we want to get this mixture just nice and fragrant before we get the spinach wilted, and then it will be perfect to mix with the cheese. And I have it all over my hands. Okay. Yeah. You don't need to add any oil. Obviously just the oil that we put in and around our pastry sheets. Just because you've got some oil in the cheese already. Also, I don't add salt. Ugh. I don't add salt to it. Obviously just because the feta is salty enough. But again, feel free to experiment. Alright, so you can see here we've got a nice little mixture and it's reduced quite a bit. We don't really want to cook it too much just because it will cook while it's in the oven. So you don't want to sort of lose all the yummy flavours and nutrients and stuff. So just a little bit until it's sort of come to a nice little mixture like that. And then we're going to add the spinach. So that probably only took about 3 minutes. So not very long at all. Now we get our spinach. Woo. Give it a good mix in there. Make sure everything's combined. More spinach. So I've only got this on a low heat. You don't want to burn it, you just want to get the steam going. How good is this? I love the different types of cheese. It just gives it a good texture, and one of them's more creamy than the other, and this is why you buy extra, because Jake comes and eats it all otherwise. Yeah, I never cook exact. It's just impossible.
It's good.
It's good. Yay! I'm glad that one of the recipe ingredients is good. I'd be worried otherwise. Unless it's one of those things like, you know, you're making gingerbread and just eating treacle's not going to be nearly as exciting. But I think all of these ingredients by themselves, apart from maybe the egg, you don't really want to eat the egg by itself, and you don't want to eat silverbeet unless it's cooked, guys. It's one of those things. It's not like English spinach where you can just pick it straight off the bunch and just go nuts with it in a salad. You need to cook your silverbeet. Right. Jake's helping.
Treacle's good.
Apparently treacle is good. It's a cheesy grin. Alright, so cheese is crumbled. Ah, messy. Alright, so hopefully you can see that. It's reduced quite a lot and it has wilted. So I reckon that's good enough, yeah? So it kind of resembles that frozen spinach that you can get in the supermarket, except it's not frozen. It's much better for you, and isn't it fun when you can make stuff yourself? So what I'm going to do is put that into a colander. Just let it drain out. You want to get rid of all the liquid. I got a new cooking bowl. I love it. It's good. It's good for Greek-sized things. Alright. So now we pop our egg in. Try not to have it flick you in the face. But I hate wasting it. Come on. It's like, dude, that chicken probably, you know, went to a lot of effort and you're wasting it. Okay. So we've got our pine nuts. Chuck them in. And we want pepper. Alright, chuck your pepper in. And we mix. Alright, that looks pretty happy. So it looks pretty good at that stage. We're gonna squeeze out all the spinach and add it to this. So you wanna get as much fluid out of this as you can, because otherwise you're gonna get soggy pastry, which is not as much fun. It just means it's harder to work with, and it can, especially if you're doing the triangles in the oven, they're just gonna fall apart. Alright, so at this stage I want to preheat my oven. So once I've got everything into the bowl and I'm about to mush it all together, just so it's giving you a few minutes for it to warm up, I've got it at about 170 degrees Celsius fan forced, which is the equivalent of probably 190 regular, and that in Fahrenheit is 375. So get it not too hot, but nice and warm to make the pastry go crispy. So I'm just gonna mix all this through, give everything a nice good coat of cheese. Looking good, smelling good too. So this is where the dill comes in. The dill just makes everything so much nicer. All right, so if you have a look at that, everything's nice and mixed up. So I'm just gonna heat the butter just on a low heat, just until it gets melted. So we don't wanna burn it. We're just getting it nice and pliable so we can use that. Now, our phyllo pastry is quite temperamental. You don't wanna leave it out of the plastic that it comes in for very long, because it will dry out. So this is why we get everything ready. We have our trays ready, everything's good to go before we start using it. We'll cut it open. The other reason I like to use the spray oil is because you can use it really quickly. You don't have to stop and obviously brush down every layer. Okay, so it comes in big long sheets. So just very carefully unroll it. And lay it down on your work surface. Ooh, all right. So there you go, nice sheets. So we're gonna start by oiling our baking tray. So good. We're gonna lay one layer at a time.
Is it phyllo so good?
It feels so good. Probably a good time to tell you that in Greek, another word for sheet, as in, you know, a sheet of phyllo, is phyllo. So in fact, I'm laying down a phyllo. Gotta love the Greek puns. So between each layer, I'm just making sure I give it a nice coat of oil. And all that does is just give it a nice sort of crispiness when it comes out of the oven, and you'll see why later. So it doesn't make it soggy, don't worry about that. It more just makes it nice and flaky because it manages to get sort of air into all the different pockets. So depending on the size of your pan and the size of your phyllo sheets, which are pretty standard. What?
Nothing.
They'll obviously overhang at different rates, so don't be too concerned about that because you're going to close it all in at the end. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I get Spanakopita. I'm good.
Jake gets Spanakopita, so he's obviously very happy. Who wouldn't be, really? My yaya didn't tell me about this part. This is, you know, it's okay. It's just a challenge. And once we've had 6 layers, we're just going to put a couple of layers sideways, just like that. Spray them again. And just ignore that your hands are all floury because that's part of the fun. Alright, so that's our prepared sheet. We're going to put as much of this mixture as we want, just to give it a nice base. over the sheet. I like it. Make sure you mush it into the edges. All right, so you can see there, I've just put a nice layer of spinach mixture on the base of the pan. Now what I need to do is close it all in. So get your side bits, fold them down, and get your butter. Make sure you got enough oil on these in-between sheets. All right, and then fold in the other layers here. Then we're going to just put one more layer on the top, and I'm just going to fold it in half just because it doesn't need to be that big. Here we go. Alright, and I'm going to layer this with a bit of butter, just so it gets nice and browned on the top. Gives it a nice brown colour and just makes it a little bit more flaky on the top, which is kind of cool and it looks nice. So lay that back over, and I'm just going to put a final layer of butter over the top. Obviously, if you're a little bit more health conscious, you can omit the butter, but I think butter is better. And just for good measure, give that a bit of an oil over. Okay, so we have the prepared Spanakopita. So I'm just going to pop that in the oven, and once it's browned on the top, it's ready to come out. What we want to do with the rest of this is fold it back up because we don't want it drying out. And we're going to pop it back in the plastic. And I'll show you why in a minute. Alright, so we have our little plastic case again. We're going to pop this inside it. Very carefully. As you can see, it's already started drying out and flaking. Now, we're going to cut it into pieces and then roll them out. So for the triangles, you probably want to use, I don't know, say 8 centimeters. So I'll cut this into 3 bits. And I can just use them one at a time so that my pastry isn't drying out. Beautiful. So pop them back in there. Alright. Unroll him. And we want to use 2 sheets at a time when you're making this. Using our oil again. Just a very quick spray. So I'm going to spoon about that much, say, into the triangle. And then what we do is just carefully roll it up. So if you want to start, basically you don't want too much on there because it's all going to fall out, but you want enough that it's a nice little meaty, spinachy parcel. Obviously not meaty, but you know, goodness. So you roll it over just so it forms a little triangle at the end of your pastry sheet, and just press it down so that you get into all little corners of your triangle. Then just lift it up so that it's still keeping in line, but you're still keeping the little triangle shape. And then just keep rolling it. So you're going to do that, keep going all the way up to the top. Once you get there, you're going to grab your baking tray. You're going to use some of your butter there and there, and close it over. Alright, so bit of oil, not on the camera, pop him down and give him another little helping of butter. There you go, you have your first triangle. And that's it. So you just keep going until you either run out of pastry sheets or your filling. Okay guys, it has been 20 minutes in the oven with our spinach pie, so I'm gonna go grab it because it's just about ready. How good does that look? Get a load of that. Fantastic. So we're gonna wait for it to cool down just a little and then we're gonna cut it up. Oh, do you wanna be doing that? Obviously keep the oven going because you're about to put the triangles in, which I've almost finished. So probably just a few more minutes and I'll have a whole tray of triangles for you. Alright, so we've got our little tray up and we'll just pop it in the oven. And it will brown nicely like the pie did, but it probably only takes about 15 minutes. And while you're doing that, you can enjoy the pie. So I'm just gonna get my pizza slicer, which is probably the easiest thing to use. Thanks, Alina. All right, so we'll just slice it up. Obviously, you know, if you're spending a lonely night at home, you just want to take this whole thing over to your computer or your TV and just eat it with a fork, that's okay. I'm not judging you, but it's nicer if you share it. So as you can see, the reason we had all those layers and we spent so much time oiling in between them is because it gave it a nice crispiness that now just makes it so easy and so tasty. You lift it up and that's what you're left with. Fantastic. So we have Spanakopita in pie form and in triangle form, trigona, and you can obviously experiment with your flavors, but just enjoy. This is such an easy thing to cook, such an easy thing to prepare, and you can just use whatever is in your kitchen at the time. So that's it. Enjoy. Hope you enjoyed the recipe, and I'll catch you next time on Pun in the Oven. I love these things. Sometimes I like to put them on and like act like I'm a rubber chicken or something. You're fucking kidding me. Yum, 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 yum.
It's too good to start with just one serving.
Jake's got double. So Jake, I think your cheese is Gouda, but mine is feta.
Done. That was awesome. Good wrap.